I wrote it and I was like, it really hurt to write it. And then I remember being like, now what do I do? This is pretty major.
So to start us off, Kate, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Dramis. I'm the author of The Odds of You, and prior to that, the Curse of Saints trilogy. I write contemporary romance and romantic fantasy, and I'm really excited to be here with you all.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. I know couple of people have had it for their book club, and also I've read it. We had an online book club to discuss it the other day, where it was really nice to break it down and get everyone's different opinions. So, stop. Just get me questions.
Yeah.
When did you first discover your love for writing and storytelling?
Oh, that's such a good question. I have been a writer for as long as I can remember, to be honest with you. I think I started writing stories around like age 11 because it was just the way that I could make sense of my brain and all of the thoughts in my brain. So yeah, I mean, honestly, like the longest time I loved to read, I loved to escape into a story. I was the kid who like just had really big emotions and really deep thoughts, and I didn't really know what to do with that. And so yeah, writing just was the way, and reading was like it escaped for me. So ever since I was a kid.
Amazing. Do you know, for me, I'm a teacher, and so I scream and shout reading all the time. So it's really nice to hear that it's come from when you were younger and you've enjoyed reading, and that you.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. And
Thank
that's a really
you.
nice way to go into it. What inspired you? So obviously you talked about you doing. Was that what inspired you mainly, or have you always wanted to be a writer?
Yeah, so before I was an author, I was a copywriter. So I've always wanted to be a writer. I was a journalism major in college. For the longest time, like my plan was I was going to go write for the Rolling Stone and just follow bands around and like do those article features. And then when it came time to like actually get a job, like for real, when I was graduating from college, I realized I had to move to Texas to do that, and I didn't want to move to Texas. And so I was just like, no, I'm good. And so I actually found a role as a copywriter, and I didn't even know what a copywriter was. I just had found this like ad agency that I really wanted to work for. And then I learned that I could like be a writer and be paid to do that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the biggest hack. Like I felt like I discovered like a cheat code in adulthood. So I've always been writing professionally in some way. And then my like dream of becoming an author kind of took the back seat for a while. I owned my own copywriting business for a while. So I did like my own entrepreneur thing. And then it was 2020 and I was inhaling romantic fantasy, and I had the idea for the Curse of Saints. And that was probably the first time that I like sat down and was like, oh, wait, this is a book. Like I'm going to finish this book and I'm going to get it published and see where it goes. So I kind of like came back around to my childhood dream of being an author, but I've always wanted to be a writer.
Oh, I love that. I've spoke to a few authors, and they always say like, oh, we started off a job similar, like editing and stuff. So it's really nice to see how you eventually got to where you want to be. That's so lovely.
Yeah,
so,
it all kind of like bleeds together.
Yeah, it's all like a little path it's meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about obviously your recent book, The Odds of You, which I absolutely loved. I love a bit of romance. And so first question in terms of that one is, what inspired the ideas behind The Odds of You?
So, Odds is a book that really snuck up on me, to be completely honest. I was on tour for The Curse of Saints, which was my debut book. And I was really, really working on boundaries because I had had like a pretty grueling editing schedule for The Curse of Saints and a really fast deadline schedule for The Curse of Sins. And it was my first time like being on deadline and all of that. So I turned in The Curse of Sins and had gotten edits back early. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to stick to my like original schedule. I'm going to give myself time on tour to not worry about edits and like just be on tour for my debut book. And I was flying from North Carolina across the country to San Diego Comic-Con. And I can't just like sit on a plane and watch a movie. Like it's just too, I don't know. I'm not normal like that. And so I ended up like having this idea of like, oh, what if an author was on her way to Comic-Con and she was sitting next to an actor and she didn't know who he was. And it really started as like this writing exercise because I was reading a lot of contemporary at the time and I really loved the voiciness of it and just like the different tone than what was in my fantasy. And I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like write this scene, and I don't know, maybe one day I'll like be able to tie it to some sort of like fandom and put it up on AO3 and just leave it. And then by the time I landed in San Diego, I was like, oh no, like this is a book, and it just flew out of me. So it really was one of those ideas that just came to me, and I was like, I have to do this.
Was you a bit nervous to like hand it over? Because obviously it is different to what you've wrote before. Was you nervous to be like, this is my new venture?
I was, it was funny. I reached out to my agent first because I still had, I was still on contract for The Curse of Gods, and I was finishing like edits for The Curse of Sins. And so I had other things I needed to do. And so I was using the odds of you kind of as like the dangling carrot to like, when I finished my work, I would work on this other thing that like wasn't contracted and I could just have fun with it. And I remember sending my agent the first act, and I was just like, hey, what do you think about me doing contemporary romance? Here you go. Like, I hope you like it. And it was really great. She was really supportive, but I was definitely nervous. And like, there were some conversations when it came time to talk about what came next for me. I think the industry tends to be resistant to authors switching genre this early in their career, and not even switching. I mean, I have more romantasy coming, but branching out. So we really had to be intentional about like what would that look like and how did we want to do that and who was involved. And there was a period of time that I was like kind of worried the industry wouldn't let me, that they would be, because The Curse of Saints had such a solid start, that they would be like, no, you still need to build your brand in romantasy. But I think that readers are a lot more flexible than publishing gives them credit for, to be honest with you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was a beautiful story. Like, there's so many meanings, and I know when we discussed it in our book club the other day, people were like, we loved how relatable in aspects in ways it was. And even for me, even the dedication at the beginning was really heartwarming. And so that it was. I think it's a lovely message, even though it's a different genre. I love it. I love it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So next question I've got is where did the title come from?
Oh my gosh, the title came from it's so funny you brought this up. So I'm currently working on edits for my next contemporary, and it doesn't have a title right now. It has like an internal title, which will not be the title. And I was like, how did I come up with The Odds of You? Because it felt like such the perfect title. And I went back into my notes app, and I have this like note of title ideas for odds. And they're horrible, Paige. Like, they're so bad. And I remember being at a writer's retreat with my two friends, and we were all working on our stuff. And we were like several glasses of wine in. And I'm just sitting there like brainstorming titles. And I had sent them to them like later to discuss. And they were like, these are all really bad. You shouldn't go with any of these. And I kept coming back around to this idea of odds and like, what are the odds? And this idea of chance and fate. And I ended up adding The Odds of You, and it was like the second to last title on the list. And it just was the one that stuck. And it was probably one of the only good ones.
Can we have a hint at what one of the other titles were?
Oh my gosh, there was stuff about like stars, like star-crossed lovers, like so like to try to play up the celebrity aspect. There were a few other titles with odds in the title, but like they didn't have the same flow. They were just bad. Like I don't remember. There was another like angle I was going. There was like a few different themes. And I was just like, these are bad, which I guess is what you have to do, right? Like you have to like dub a bunch and then be like,
it's
a
process. It's a process.
Yes. And it was funny because I when we went on submission, like it had like the title, I had figured out the title, and I was very lucky to get to keep it. Because sometimes the titles get changed. And so I was very lucky because it was at that point, it was The Odds of You to me. And I was like, okay, this is the title, it has to stay. Okay. Yeah.
Oh no, I think I've always said this, like if I wrote something and I'd picked something and I was really dedicated to it, and someone said we need to change it, I don't think I could let go.
I know, it's really challenging. It's funny because I'm working on a romantasy and I have a title in mind for it, and I don't think my publisher is going to go for it. And I'm like, shoot, like I've fallen in love with this title. What am I going to do with this? And it's never happened to me before.
Whenever it comes out, you just have to be like, I see it as something else.
Yes, formerly known as. Like,
yes. In my eyes, it's this.
Yeah.
I love that. I always like to know like where things, how like obviously the story's made, but then obviously the title, where the title comes from, and sometimes even the illustrations link into it.
Yeah.
Right. So, next question in terms of odds review: did the premise change much from your original idea to the final book?
Mm. No, not really. There weren't a ton of changes during the editing process. I actually don't know that my agent and I made like hardly any changes at all before we went out on submission with it. She is English, so she definitely helps me with the authenticity read for Theo. So there were like small things that she was like, "You silly American, that's not how that works." But in terms of plot, there wasn't a lot that changed. I would say that um there was some more detail added during the edits phase, like the whole plot line of them watching movies together came in more during the edits, which was great, and I loved it, and also was a challenge because I'm not much of a movie buff, so the amount of time I spent going down a rabbit hole of like not just what movies did I want the story to talk about, but specifically what movies would Theo talk about as an actor and as a person and like all of that. So that was new to the editing phase, but most of it stayed the same. If anything, there were just some additions. Like Archie didn't have any page time in the original Theo's dad, and he shows up now in the final version. So more just like expanding on things that were already kind of planted there.
Oh, I like that. I love the film aspect because, like Sage, I can't sit and watch film very often.
Yeah.
Gonna hook me in. And I met my partner, he's a big film person. And so I've just had to learn to love it.
Yes, yeah, it's funny because I ended up like obviously watching everything that was either listed. I'd either already seen it or I watched it and like did a bunch of research on it. And then I was like, oh, this could actually be soothing, but it didn't last very long. Like I was into it in typical ADHD fashion. I was into it for like, 3 weeks, and then I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, yeah, that was fun.
And we've had a question come through in our little chat, and it says, "Why did you set the book in Skye?"
Oh my gosh, I love this question. So I set the book in Skye because in 2019, I went to the Isle of Skye with my best friend and we had an absolute ball. It was beautiful. We actually got a Scott's cheap flights deal, which I believe is called something else now, but we got it like one of those flight deals to Ireland, and we were obsessed with Outlander. And so we were like, oh, we're going to use this to get close to where we want to go, and then we're going to pop over to Scotland instead. And we rented a car and we drove up to the Isle of Skye. We drove to the Highlands. And it was just magical and beautiful and such a good time. And so when I was writing the story, I knew I wanted Sage to go somewhere to write. I think a change of scenery is really important. And I was kind of following this like, okay, so it's like Notting Hill meets The Holiday-esque. And I was, kind of playing with that trope. And I was like, oh, well, if I were running away to write, I would run away to the Isle of Skye. And I really wanted it to be somewhere that I had been. Like I wanted each location in the book to be something that I was familiar with. So that's why I ended up choosing the Isle of Skye. And plus, it's so beautiful. Like it's just so beautiful.
I need to get. It's inspired me. I need to get.
Oh my god, you will love it. Like it is absolutely gorgeous, and there's so much from that like from the story that it actually happened. Like our Airbnb host, they were so kind, but they were so like in our business, which was awesome. Like it was so amazing. We did not have like a guest cottage by any means. We stayed in like a separate little section of the house, but like they would come in the morning and be like, you barely ate any breakfast and you've been out hiking all day. And they were so lovely. And I remember thinking like, if we do drive off into a lock, like someone will know we're missing because our Airbnb hosts are like really locked in. And that scene where Sage is driving and she's like freaking out about being on the other side of the road and the truck is coming out at her and she's been upgraded to an SUV. Like all of that is directly from our trip. Like we got a rental car. They upgraded us to an SUV, which was horrible. I mean, it was great in the end, but I was like, no, first of all, no one should have let us drive there. Like, I can't believe we just walked in and we're like, we're going to drive here. And they were like, yeah, sure. Here's a car. And then on top of that, here's an SUV. Was wild behavior.
I love that so many aspects of like what's actually happened to has made it into this book. I love that. I really do.
Thank you.
I need to ask though, was there a power cut while you were there?
Was what?
Was there a power cut?
There was not. There was not. We were there in April, so no snow. Power was fine. It was really cold, which was funny because we got to Edinburgh and it was hot. And we were like, oh man, we packed wrong. And then we got to Skye and it was freezing. And we were like, never mind, we've packed correctly. So yeah, no power cut. There was a football game on, but it was not like a huge matchup, but we did stand in a pub for hours. waiting to get some fish and chips while watching football. And that was great.
I love that.
Yeah.
I must say the weather, welcome to the UK. That's the whole of the
Yes,
UK.
absolutely.
And all it does is rain.
Yes. Yes.
Next question then. Was there a moment while writing when the story went in a completely different direction than you originally planned?
Whew. I don't know that it went in a completely different direction. I do know that the first few chapters when I wrote them were very lighthearted. And I think like you can kind of like I always say you when you read odds, you come for the banter and you stay for the like cathartic cry on the couch at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I think that evolution I wasn't necessarily planning on, but it came naturally because I remember when I sent the pages to my agent, she was like, "Oh yeah, like here's the signature angst that you include in all of your work," and I was like, "Oh, I love that." Like yes, I think that Theo's arc took me by surprise. I was not anticipating him to have so much going on in his personal life. I knew I wanted him to be a 3D character. Like I wanted him to have his own arc. I wanted him to have his own journey. And I just didn't know what that was going to be until I was like sitting and writing. And then he kind of just told me on the page. And that was a really interesting thing to explore. So more of that type of surprise, but there wasn't anything where I was like, oh, I had no idea that this was going to go in that direction.
I must ask about the side characters because you've got some obviously some great side characters. Who's your favorite?
Oh, I mean, Emerson. I love Emerson. Emerson really just kind of like hopped on the page and stole the show. I love her so much. But it's hard, you know, because I think Margot's great too. Like I love Margot's commitment to like this LA health journey and like trying to get Emerson and Sage to like be healthier and but also like in a very woo-woo sort of way. They're so fun. But I think I like Emerson's boldness. I like how Emerson is just like committed to pursuing Taylor, even though Taylor's like, please, you're too much for me. I think it's so adorable. And I love that like Emerson to me is the most confident person in every single room. And I want to embody that energy. Like, I just think that's really great.
Honestly, I think she's one of the biggest side characters. Like she has a lot. We see her quite a lot throughout the book.
Yeah.
From like me reading it and hearing other people's opinions, she was a big character for everybody. Do you think that you'll ever go down the route of doing a book with Emerson?
Such a good question. I've been getting this question a lot. So I'm trying to think through like what I'm allowed to say. So I can tell you it is not my next contemporary. I can tell you that there has been interest. It has been a conversation between my editor and I. There's nothing official, but like I'm contracted to write 2 books, and my hope is that I get to write more with my publishers in contemporary. And that is one of the ideas I am thinking on. I wrote it in such a way that I could revisit it. So I would really like to write an Emerson and Taylor spinoff. I think it would be awesome. I think that as long as the like support for the book continues, then it hopefully should be something I'm allowed to do. So we'll see.
Well, whilst I was saying the question that I already had in my head, someone put it in the Q&A. So it clearly is what people want. So they've got to give it to us.
Yes. Yeah.
The questions just popped in as we were talking about that. Oh, let me just go on to the chat. I keep knocking every button here. If there isn't anything official, then can you give the tea what happens with Taylor?
I cannot, because there will likely, hopefully, be something official. So no spoilers. I cannot tell you what happened with Taylor. I know what happened with Taylor. I can tell you that I absolutely know what happened with Taylor, but no, I cannot tell you. So
that was a sneaky one, that's for sure.
Yes, that was very sneaky. I really appreciate the sneakiness, Karen. Like, that was awesome. But no, I cannot.
Moving on to the next question then. Which part of the book did you most enjoy writing, and which part did you find challenging?
Oh, there's so many parts that I absolutely loved writing. The itchy brain scene is one of my favorites. I loved that scene. It just meant a lot to me. And it was one of those things, again, that flew out of me. I don't write out of order very often, but it was one of the earliest scenes I actually wrote for Odds. And it was one of the first snippets I shared on social media. So I like to do this thing where I share snippets of projects that haven't been bought by publishing yet. And I'm sure it's like something that I shouldn't do, but I'm like, well, it belongs to me right now. So what does it matter? And I like to do it because I feel like it shows that like an idea is viable, and it gives me a false like sense of control in an industry where I don't have a lot of control. And so that was one of the first snippets I shared, and it went like viral, like massively viral, and it was really exciting to see. So that scene is really just special to me on a lot of different levels. I also really love the Never Have I Ever Seen. Like those were the two I always have when I go into a project, hills I'll die on. I'm not very sensitive when it comes to edits because that's what like editors are there to do, is help pull out the best version of the book. But I always have like 2 or 3 areas where I'm like, this is a hill I will die on. And the Never Have I Ever Seen and the Itchy Brain scene were 2 hills I was going to die on. Like I was like, these scenes are not getting cut from the book. They must stay. In terms of a tough scene to write, there was some discussions. It's not really a scene, but there were some discussions during edits about like the slow burn nature of the relationship. My editors initially were very keen to make it a quicker burn. And so that was kind of a discussion we needed to have about like heat level and slow burn and, how we set that up. And then I would say the argument that comes towards the end in the third act, that was really, it wasn't hard to write. It was hard because I wrote it and then I was like, I don't know how they're going to come back from this. Like, this is like a massive argument. And they were really gearing up for it. Like, we were headed in that direction the whole time, like these issues were going to surface. It's so much less about what happens on New Year's Eve and so much more about all the stuff they haven't addressed. But I wrote it and I was like, it really hurt to write it. And then I remember being like, now what do I do? This is pretty major.
It's because they were in like a bubble, weren't they? Like they'd obviously spent Christmas together and they were ignoring the real world a little
Yeah.
bit. Even as a reader, it had to happen at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can imagine it being hard to be like, now we need the big fight.
Yes. And like just like leaving that and being like, how do you fix this without adding another like 100,000 words?
I know. I mean, I was saying this to the book club the other day. I didn't expect like when how the film guy came over. I was like, I was oblivious to the fact that he could have been him who was the one what dropped out. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I was so shocked. And then when I spoke to the people, they were like, oh no, I did see it. I think I fixed. Yeah, we go.
Yeah, I'm glad it hit that way because it felt like, not that it felt obvious to me, but I remember being like, oh, I was hoping that like enough time had passed that like everyone would just sort of forget that that was a thing that had happened. And then when it happens, like it hits hard. And I've heard from several readers being like, I totally forgot about it. And then Jalen shows up and I was like, oh, Jalen, this is cool. And then I was like, oh no. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty impactful.
I thought he was just going to be the one that outed them being together. Like, I thought he'd just leave the party and they would then tell the media again. I thought he was going to go down that route. But then when it all like fell into place, I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, it was a shock for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you probably had a mix, like people say, oh, I had no clue. But
yeah, I did. A lot of people were pretty taken aback.
I like that. I'm glad I'm not the only one then. So obviously you're known for writing romanticism, and this obviously you told us about going down a different route. Did you have a different writing process for each one?
A little bit. I always start with a 10 plot point outline where I try to say like, okay, here are my 10 main beats, and then I implement the story corpse method by V.E. Schwab into that to like kind of like map out the bones and see, what are all the key scenes in the book. I will say the 10 plot point method works really well for my romantasy because I tend to write more like epic romantasy. Like it's very heavy on the fantasy. And so I need something simple because if I can't tell the story simply, then I'm like lost in 8 million sidetracks for my characters. That doesn't work as well for the romance side because I was plotting it out and I remember going back to my outline as I was writing and I was getting to like, the midpoint of the book and I felt like things were kind of stalling. And I looked at my outline and like plot point number 5 just said they fall in love. And I was like, okay, but like, how? Like, what is it? What does this mean? So I definitely had to like adapt and I think like beat it out a little bit more than I would in my fantasy, just to make sure there was like forward momentum. So that was definitely different. The writing style, I think, is different. Like it's a lot voicier than my romantasy tends to be, or at least my current romantasy. Going back and forth and between my fantasy is written in past tense and this was written in present, and like going back and forth between the two is a lot. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that was like drastically different. Not really. Like my process is pretty much my process. I'm trying to trust my process a little bit more. Every book I write, I do something a little bit different. And I think that's probably more of a product of my ADHD. Like I need routine to a certain extent, and then I also need to be interested in what I'm doing. So I have to mix up the routine every once in a while. But nothing huge.
Obviously you just mentioned ADHD, and you talked about the itchy brain scene. In terms of your main character Sage, have you, the way you've wrote it, have you then put elements of yourself in this book when you wrote it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I always say that Sage, she's not me, but she's the character that I've given like the most of myself to, like my ADHD, my bisexuality, my like desire to always chase the next level, often to my detriment. Like a lot of that was inspired by my own experiences. Obviously, Sage's like career experience is very different than mine. I've been very, very blessed to have a great start to my career, but Sage is like on another level. Like, she's dealing with a level of success that is much different. And I actually hadn't experienced that level of writer's block until after I wrote The Odds of You. And then I got myself into writer's block and I was like, oh, oops. Yeah, yeah, and like her stuff with her family is very different than my family is very supportive. So there's definitely different areas to like explore and things I was pulling from other authors I spoke to, other creatives. But in terms of her like ADHD and anxiety, that is definitely like something that it's how I experience my ADHD and anxiety.
And I know from like when we did our book club the other day, one of our members thought it was really nice to see it represented, and really enjoyed the read because of it. And I believe we just had a chat message in the chat as we were speaking. Karen said, "I think the itchy brain and the other not so nice symptoms of ADHD are very well written. But these are often the lesser parts of ADHD people are comfortable to hear about. What inspired you to write on the argumentably dark side of ADHD? Was this a different narrative than we have seen in social media lately?"
Ooh, that's such a good point. I guess I've never really considered it the darker side of ADHD as much as I've just considered it the parts of ADHD I struggle with. I remember reading my favorite book, which is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and reading about Alex's undiagnosed ADHD and automatically being like, this feels familiar. Like this idea of like kicking really hard underwater and not wanting people to see that. And I wanted to write something that leaned more into that in particular, and especially ADHD in women. I think ADHD in women is very misunderstood. And it was important to me to just to capture the experience that was happening in my head.
Yeah.
I've always been really good at talking about what I'm feeling, which my therapist is always like, cool, now can you feel what you're feeling? And I'm like, no, I will articulate it though. And I wanted to put that on the page because I think it's important. And I remember just how moved I felt like when I read, that was the first time I had read a character that I was like, oh my gosh, like someone understands what it's like in my head. And I felt the same way about his bioawakening journey. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like literally this is what it was like in my brain. And I wanted readers to have that feeling when they read Sage. So I think there was no real like other option than to write kind of the side that's not discussed as much, because that is the side that we don't talk about a lot. And I don't think it's as understood. It's not as like pop psychology cool as some of the other discussions that are happening. And I think that it's important to put it out there, especially because as a creative, I had to when I became a full-time creative, I had to completely relearn how to like show up in my work and how to work with my brain, because it's different than what I was doing before. And I had to like really adjust to the way in which my brain worked. Because I didn't fully understand how to operate in this new container, if that makes sense.
No. And thank you for sharing that. Obviously, it is really nice to see it being represented. And obviously, for people like have that same feeling that you had when they read a book and see, oh, I get this, and then being able to open up that little kind of worms sort of thing.
Yeah.
Love it. Next one then. Which Okay, we just basically answered the question for my next one. It was like, which character do you relate to the most?
Definitely Sage.
If you had to describe the main character in 3 words, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. That's so hard. 3 words. I would say driven. Um, Driven, creative, and sensitive.
I know you. This is a question we discussed in book club, but I think it's a nice one. Obviously, you wrote the book, so you might have an opinion on it. Were you annoyed? Obviously, you wrote it. So it's really awkward. When Theo didn't post his post back after obviously it went public, are you annoyed with him? Obviously, you wrote it that way. I know we've discussed whether we were annoyed that he didn't do it back or not.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, it's a shit move, right? Like what he does is it's a shit move. I understand why he does it. I think it's interesting because oftentimes like when we write things, I think that and I'm not saying that this is what book club was saying, but I think that it's hard as an author to write something and make it clear that you don't endorse it, right? Like it's like there's that really interesting line. I think that it's not what I would have done. I would hope. I would hope. But I do understand why he did it. And I think that if we like drop into Theo and where he's at and like what is going on in his head and with his father, and then when Sage meets him, she's quite disinterested in the beginning. And then on top of that, like it's very clear to him that like she's like, okay, but like you're kind of a distraction and this is the thing I'm focused on and you're messing this up for me, right? And so I can understand why he would be like, as soon as she like shoves him away and people come in and she's like, having that moment, I could see how he'd just be like, this is too much I can't, like, this is too much. I put myself out there. I think that he did not plan to kiss her initially. And so like that moment of just like, he's acting instinctively. And then he's like, oh God, what have I done? And I think Theo has a habit of running away from things that are messy. Like Sage notices this in him a lot, especially in Skye. Like he compartmentalizes things in a way that I think she envies, and also is like, this is messy if you keep hiding these things. And so I don't know that there would have been any other route for Theo. I don't think he was in a place to like really stand firm in what had transpired.
I mean, it's both characters obviously are on their own little journey, and like you said, he's going through his own stuff, and she is, and she what we discussed is obviously she helps him a sort of way and starts to understand how he masks it, and then he then starts seeing how she does it, and that was really nice to see both sides supporting.
Yeah. I'm really interested in characters that, especially in a romance, like characters that are mirrors to each other and can show each other similar things, but in different ways. And I think one of the things I love about that is usually in that dynamic, they initially trigger each other because they see themselves and they see parts of themselves that they probably don't want to see. And so I was really fascinated in this idea of 2 characters who are dealing with similar challenges, but very, very differently. Like they're dealing with their family stress in very different ways, and it's similar but different. Obviously, like Theo's situation with his family is very different from Sage's, and also even fame. Like I think that it was really interesting to explore how Theo could be removed from it and like put up this boundary, but also how he kind of has the privilege of doing that because he's so famous. Like Sage is in Canva making her own book graphics, right? She has to be online. And like Theo's like not in Canva making a come to my premiere post. Like his team is handling that. And so, they help each other, but they also have this kind of disconnect as well because they're experiencing these things differently.
Definitely. And I think you see that with that bit where she obviously the public's going a lot against her. And he's like, oh, just live it out. Clearly he's used to it and she wasn't used to it. So there is that as well. I did say I liked the text threads when they came up in the book.
Yes.
I love when a book has got like not just writing in it, it's got a little bit of a diagram or something like that. That's one of my favorite things.
I love text threads, and I had so much fun writing them. I feel like you can cover so much ground with a text thread. Like there's just so much you can do with it. I will say though, I mean, I am shocked my publishers are not like, you're never allowed to do this again, because I was a pain when we went to production. Like with the formatting, I got way too into it. And I was like, this needs to be like left aligned, but this bubble is too big. And it got so bad to the point where like I got final pass pages and they were like, you are not allowed to make any other changes. Like you
decide.
They're like, this is the way it's going to be. And so I had told a friend of mine that we co-write together like once a week. And I was like, I'm not going to do text threads again. And then here I am in my next contemporary. There's several text threads. And I'm like, oh, so sorry.
Oops.
Yeah. I love them. And I just like, I'm very lucky that my team is very gracious with me and patient, because I was like really, really going in on that. And like, even like the emojis, like I was like, that emoji isn't quite right. Can we do this one? And they're like, we don't have like Apple's coding. Like we have to like pull from what we can actually code into the book. And I was like, oh yeah, sorry.
So Karen's just put in the chat, you should totally write a whole book in that style. They are fab to read.
Oh my God, that would be so fun. That would be so fun. I would love that.
I'm a big fan of them. I think there is a certain book and they write it, the whole book is emails and focus the appeal. Yeah, I think it's that way. I think I'm at my bookshelf right now.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, it's like they do a Christmas one called The Christmas Appeal. And so every page is it's not like a reading a book, it's all like emails and texts and stuff.
That's amazing. It's funny. So I'm a big fanfic reader and I read a lot of fanfic that's like that. That's like all just like text threads, or like my favorite is like the internet reacts to, and it's like something the two characters have done and it's just like Twitter. And I'm like, this is great.
On the text threads, and obviously we do see throughout the book, we see bits of like comments on her Instagram. And people that obviously is representing what it can be like to be in the public eye. And even that was done beautifully. Like we talked about, like it opened it up to see what people who are in there, like even like yourself, have to deal with comments constantly, even when you're trying to have time away and always talking about what you've done. Like I guess that could be quite hard.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to have had a mostly positive experience on social media. Knock on wood. There have definitely been like moments where there's been some like parasocial behavior that I find interesting. And it's also just something that I've observed. I'm just really fascinated. I'm fascinated by social media. It's been an incredible tool for me as an author. And even before that, like before, when I owned my copywriting business, I was also doing business coaching for other entrepreneurs, and my whole business existed online. So I was always, I came into this space thinking I knew what it was like to like be a public figure, but then it's a whole different level. And I'm not even that, big as an author, but it's just it's a fascinating thing to see how we interact with people on the internet, and the assumptions we make and the things we say that I think we would never say to people's faces. And so it was interesting to explore that. I did not realize how triggering it was going to be for my author friends. I had quite a few of them reach out to me, especially I think one of the comments is like, oh, this is like a publicity stunt. I don't even need to read her book, automatic 1-star review. And like the amount of authors who texted me and were like, I had a visceral reaction to that, because like something like that has happened. Like, they've just gotten tagged in something similar. So I thought that was really interesting. And I was like, oh, it's fascinating that we can all kind of relate to this. But it was definitely, I don't want to say fun, because that sounds like torturous. Like it was fun to dive into, but it was kind of interesting to plant these seeds and like watch kind of how it unfolds throughout the book. And I've actually had a few readers reach out to me to say that it's made them think about, their own interactions on social media and like what, how they interact with people they don't know. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. I didn't intend for it to be like a preachy sort of lesson by any means, just more of an observation. But I love anytime something sticks with someone.
Yeah, and I think it does stick with them. And I review books, but I'm one where if I didn't like it, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I would never say anything. For one, I can't say anything negative. I'm not like a negative person.
Yeah.
But I never tag the person in it.
Oh my God, the tagging. It's the tagging. Like, and that it's so interesting to me because like obviously once a book is published, like it's not mine anymore, it's yours, you know? So like I am very much of the mindset of like you are allowed to have whatever opinion about it that you want, obviously. Like it's your opinion, it's yours to interact with. I have had to a few times like on my social media be like, but my boundary is please don't tag me. Like just don't I don't need to know. I don't go on Goodreads. I have Goodreads blocked. That gets filtered through. I wish I was the type of author who could like just sit and read all of their reviews. I'm not. Like I don't know how people do that. I have just come to terms with the fact that I'm too sensitive and it's so subjective, right? Like I don't know kind of how people sort through that type of feedback. But yeah, the tagging is always the thing that I'm like, I don't need to know this.
Yeah. I do get that. All right, my next question then. I think I've covered half my questions without.
Oh my gosh, look at us go.
I love that. So obviously you told us about your point scale. Do you outline your book heavily before writing, or do you prefer to discover the story as you go?
A little bit of both. I like to outline enough that I know where I'm going, and like what the core beats of the story are. And then I try to like just feel it out and see what comes to me. I like to leave room for magic. I will say the only book I didn't do that with was The Curse of Gods, which is the final book of the Curse of Saints trilogy. That I outlined like to a T. And so much so that when I was really stuck, it was so interesting. And I think this might have been part of why I was blocked on it. I outlined it so much that I was like, okay, but like now what? Like why do I now I have to sit down and like write it, but like it's basically written in the outline sort of thing. And I remember joking with my agent and being like, can we just leak this Google Doc? And she was like, no, we cannot. And I'm obviously very glad we didn't do that. But yeah, I have to have like a little bit of room for discovery or else I get bored. And I also have to have like room to kind of dream and think and marinate about where the story goes and how we get to each point. So I like knowing, like, okay, I'm starting here, I'm trying to get here. This is the route I'm probably going to take, but like what sites am I going to stop and see on the way there?
For people who haven't read your romancy, because I've not yet, I've read that and then now I need to. I need to go on because I love romancy.
Thank you.
How can you just describe it? Explain it or tell people.
Yes, I can tell you about it. So it's kind of like it's like Shadow and Bone meets Throne of Glass meets Game of Thrones. So it follows Aya, who is a spy, and she shows powers that haven't been seen in over 500 years, just as dark magic reappears in her kingdom. And everyone thinks that she is the second saint who's been prophesized to save the realm from the return of dark magic. So she's sent away to study her power with her bitter enemy, the queen second in command, Will, who is tasked with her protection. And while she is studying her magic, it starts presenting as dark magic. So they have to figure out, has she been sent to save the world, or has everyone misunderstood the prophecy and she's actually supposed to destroy the entire thing?
Ooh, you definitely sold it to me. That.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very if you're into like political intrigue, there's a ton of political intrigue throughout the whole thing. There is quite a plot twist in book 2. So luckily the trilogy is complete now, so you don't have to wait. But there was like a long year of my readers being furious with me, which I was like, haha, you're welcome. Yeah, so it's one of those stories where like there are a few times where everything you think you know is not what you know, and who you think you trust is not who you can trust. So it was very fun to write.
Oh, it sounds fun. It definitely sounds fun. I'm going to add it to my list. I'm glad it's finished because as much as I love reading romancy, you often I just read The Heavenly Bodies.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, oh, the second one's out. Oh, but the third one's not.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes. You have to have a lot of patience.
I do, you do. So moving on to like different genres, what's your favorite genre?
Oh, it really depends on the mood I'm in, to be honest with you. I am a cross genre reader. I will go through and like binge a bunch of fantasy, and then I will binge a bunch of contemporary, and then I will hop over. I like grew up in the dystopian, era as well. So I love dystopian. It really just depends on like the story for me and what's catching my fancy. Recently, I have to say I haven't been reading as much as I would like recently, just because I'm on double deadline. And when that happens, if I'm reading, I'm usually like reading fanfic at night because I need something that like I'd already know the characters, right? Like it feels like a little treat for me. But I read, what are some of the things that I read recently that I loved? I read I'm Medusa by Ayana Gray.
Ooh.
Absolutely amazing. Like one of the best fantasy books that I have read in my entire life. It is a retelling of Medusa and like her origin story. So fantastic book. And I'm currently reading an early arc of Dearly Departed by Chip Pons, and it is so so good. It is a romance about a funeral director who's the former god of death, and the flower shop owner that he falls in love with, who does not know that he is the former god of death. So fantastic. It's really fun and it's really funny right now.
Oh, I'm glad. It sounds good. Sounds really good.
It's so good. It's so good. I think it comes out in June, so not too long.
Not too long. I'll keep my eyes out for it, definitely. Amazing. So obviously just wrote romance. What are your favorite romance tropes?
Ooh, I love rivals to lovers. I also love, this is so niche, but I love a rain scene. Like I like an angry confession in the rain specifically, or some sort of like big moment and it's raining. Like when I read Red, White, and Royal Blue and Alex storms Kensington and it was raining, like I legitimately put the book down and was like, yes, like I just knew it was gonna hit really hard. So I really, really love a rain scene. I kind of put one in odds, but not like the full kind of fury behind it that I would like to use. So I'm still sitting on that one. Maybe I'll use that one day. But I
About
really
to
love that.
in the future.
Yeah, right. I was like, oh my god, I don't know, something about like adding the rain. It just makes it so great. What other tropes do I love? I mean, I love an only one bed. I also am such a sucker for emotional hurt comfort. Like that's my jam. I just absolutely adore that. I sort my fan fiction by that, and I read like emotional hurt comfort as like a safe container to feel my feelings.
I'm a big grumpy sunshine. I
Mm.
love a grumpy sunshine.
Grumpy Sunshine is also great. Yes, I love that. I also kind of love a grumpy grumpy. Like I'm like, this is fun. Like,
Be grumpy the whole time. I still love
yes, yes. Two grumps flirting how to be less grumpy. Love that.
I love that, definitely. Um, so think back to the odds of you.
Mm.
What do you hope readers take away from it?
Oh, honestly, like I hope I kind of think it goes back to the dedication. Like I hope people read it and feel like they're enough as they are. Um, I always want readers when they pick up a book of mine to find themselves somewhere on the page. And that is always my hope that, they read it and they feel seen. And so with odds specifically, I think it's really, about like those who feel like their brain is too fast or their heart is too big, their feelings are too overwhelming. I hope they know that they're enough just as they are and are deserving of love.
No, that's a really lovely takeaway from it.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Okay, this is a hard one, maybe.
Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
actually, I love that. If you could describe the book in one sentence, what would you say?
Oh my God.
I'm
Paige, why
right.
would you do
This
this
is a
to
hard
me?
one. This is a hard
One
one.
sentence. Oh my God.
I could have
Like,
been
I'm supposed to pitch it in one sentence?
one word.
One word would be like odds. Uh,
Oh,
let's see. One sentence would be like, uh, okay. So I would say if someone was like, describe it in one sentence, I would say the odds of you is like Notting Hill meets The Holiday with the emotional vibes of Noah Kahan's Styx season album just layered throughout all of it.
I love that. I love
Thank
that. You
you.
should as a pitch. Definitely
Thank
like
you.
throw that out there. I like that.
Yes. Perfect. Perfect. Yes. That's my
Definitely
mashup.
like the music references throughout the book as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I had more, but I had to cut them.
Oh no.
I know.
You should just put a playlist.
I do. So there is a playlist. I will say, I think it's linked in my bio on on Instagram, but there is a playlist for Theo and for Sage. They each have their own playlist.
Oh my God, that's you know what I'm doing after this now.
Yes.
I'm going to reread and listen to music.
Yes.
We've had a question in the chat. It says, "What is the one book that you read growing up that made you fall in love with reading?"
Oh my gosh, there were so many. Oh, I loved as a kid the Magic Treehouse books. Like I was obsessed. That was probably like my first entryway into reading and like fantasy as well. Like I just thought it was so cool. I remember like begging my mom to read any Magic Treehouse books. And it's funny because my nephew has just started reading them as well. And I'm like, I'm so pumped. I was like, oh my God, have you gotten to the one where they go to Pompeii yet? Like, I'm just like so locked in. And he's like, chill out, Auntie Kate. But yeah, I would say the Magic Treehouse books were like, those were my jam as a kid.
I think it's coming out in film. I might be wrong.
What?
No, I think I might
This
be wrong.
is the best news ever. If that's real, I'm going to freak out. I'm in the
In the UK
already.
it is. I think it's coming out soon. I need to go up this right a second. I'm pretty sure it's happening.
If it's coming out in the UK and it doesn't come out in the States, I'm flying over there to see it. I'm not kidding. I'm coming.
I'll double check. If anybody does know and who's watching, please do confirm.
Yeah, please let me know. Or DM me. Give me all of the tea.
I love that. We've just talked about this. We keep answering my questions. I love it. It's like if you could have a theme tune for the main characters, what would it be?
Oh man. I mean, I just think like all of the Noah Kahan album would be the themes for them. I do also think if I had to pick one for each, Sage would be View Between Villages, by Noah Kahan. What would Theo be? Hold on. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna look at my Theo playlist because I can't. Theo's is kind of silly, but Industry Baby is a great song for Theo. I feel like that is just really his jam. Theo's also a really big Britney Spears fan. So I feel like that is one for him. But if I had to, probably No Complaints. No Complaints by Noah Kahan. They're both going to be Noah Kahan songs. Yeah.
I love that. They've both got to enjoy the same music.
Yes.
So obviously we know that Sage is looking for a book deal in turns into a film. If you were looking for that to happen, who would your dream cast be?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I got this question. So I am like Sage, in which I do not know celebrities. I just am not very clued into celebrity culture. And because of that, while I was on tour for The Odds of You, I kept getting this question and I kept embarrassing myself and being like, I have no idea. And so then I had to take answers from the crowd, and then I started thinking about it a little more myself. So someone recommended Miranda Cosgrove as Sage, and I was like, I could see it. I could really see it.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a great fit. In terms of Theo, someone recommended Tom Blythe, which I was like, I could also see that. However, I also think Connor Story would make a great Theo. I feel like, I know he is not English, but I feel like he could nail the accent. And I have seen a photo of him with his curly hair and his hat, and he looks exactly like Theo on the UK cover. And I was like, I'm telling you, I feel like Connor Story would make a great Theo.
I'm with you on that. Whenever I ask this question, I always think in my head, please be someone and remember it. Any famous person, please.
Any famous person. This is when it's always, who would you want casted in your stuff? You would think I've never seen a movie ever. And then also when someone asks me what I'm reading or what my favorite books are, I'm like, I've never read a book a day in my life. I suddenly can't remember anything. I just freeze.
I do. I'm really bad at when I love a book so much, I remember the title of it and I'm like, right, okay, the author was, and it just takes a little bit longer. I'm going to read it. Okay, it wasn't the Magic Tree House, it was the Magic Faraway Tree film. It's due to be released on the 27th of March, so not too long to wait.
Interesting. Okay,
If
I'm gonna
it's
have
the
to look into
same,
that.
I might be wrong. But I saw it because obviously I saw it on the bus and the kids in my class were talking about it. I was like, oh, I think I know the answer to that one.
That's amazing.
My next question then. Which scene are you most excited for readers to experience? Obviously, we talked about your favorite scene, but which one are you really excited for the readers to read? Of the
Oh gosh. I mean, I really do think, I think the itchy brain scene, like, I think that is the one I'm most excited for. I just really love the care that Theo shows in that scene. I think it's like such a great moment between the two of them. I would say either that or the scene on Bray's Beach. I think that's also a huge moment between the two of them. And like a moment in which, you know, Sage like sees Theo, like really actually sees him and sees who he is. So, and what he's struggling with. So I think those two scenes are my two, like, that I get really excited when a reader's like, oh, I'm right at this point. I'm like, yes, I can't wait.
We can go in.
Yes.
I love that. I just thought of my own other question from earlier now. Obviously we've got a great girl friendship, which even spans into Theo being dragged into the little having his own group chat with him, which I absolutely loved.
Yes. Yes.
It was I like this it's not the scene where she obviously is going through a hard time with her family and she like blocks herself off for the world, even her friends. Obviously he still has a chat with them. So that's just a beautiful. The friendship is that inspired from your own friends.
Yes. So I would say not one to one. I mean, Emerson is inspired by my best friend. She makes her way into everything I write somehow. She's always like the one person that's like in there. But not one to one. But I think just like the strength of friendship, I am very, very lucky to have very strong friendships. And just like a really like supportive found family, you know. And I mean, my family, my actual family is very supportive, but I have like a found family as well and my friends. And I would not survive without them. And my friends and I we do life together. And I wanted to capture that on the page. And I think it's especially important when talking about female friendships. I think they're not always portrayed very positively in media. And I wanted to make sure that in this case, you know, that was there. I was doing an interview for a podcast and I was asked, you know, did I think about adding any like drama or tension to the friendships? And I was answering no, because I feel like, you know, that is something that is portrayed a lot in media around female friendships. And I wanted to show the strong side and, you know, the friendships that are not competitive and that are very supportive. And, you know, obviously everyone has conflict. Like, you know, my friends and I have conflict and we talk it out and then we move on. And I wanted to make sure that I was painting that sort of picture. And so it was really important to me that that was represented that way.
I loved it. It's some of my favorite parts was when they were having their little group chat. And like you said, Margot was sending in her self-help.
Oh my gosh, yes, all her self-help things. And I love Theo getting dragged into everything and like getting dragged into the Taylor and Emerson drama. Like I just think that's awesome. I also think he loves it. Like he just lives for that. Like
yeah. He was loving it.
Yeah.
I think another thing, obviously, we know we see quite a bit of Emerson. And we've talked about obviously we would love to see her own story, but I think from what I gauge from book readers is we even would like to know more about Margot.
Yes. Yes. I would love for there to be more things about Margot. I can't say this.
He's giving you too many questions. I can't answer them.
I know. Yeah, I would love for there to be more Margot. It's, you know, it's funny, I wrote the first several chapters and then I rewrote them. Like I wrote the first act and then I rewrote the first act. And actually Margot didn't exist in the very first iteration of chapter 1. That I was like, oh, I feel like this friend group needs something else. And then she kind of came to me and I was like, oh my God, she's perfect. But yeah, I definitely have like an arc for her in mind. I will say my next contemporary doesn't follow any of these characters, but you might hear about some of the characters in the next contemporary. The worlds might, you know, kind of overlap. I remember reading Sarah Dessen as a kid, and like I loved that characters would pop up in different books. So there's a little bit of that in my next piece.
I know it's something, if I know a character who I've read before who's coming up in a book, it makes me want to read it because I'm like, oh, I just want that tiny little bit.
Yes, that little like Easter egg.
Someone's put in the group chat, my vote is Margot meeting the horrid boss of Emerson's.
I feel like Margot would eat him alive. Is it Richard? I kept renaming him different things. I think he was Randall and then he was Richard, and I just couldn't pick an R name. Like throughout, my copy editor was like, who is this?
This guy.
Yeah, that guy.
We've also had some people who say who they think would be good for actors. We've had Leah Woodall as Theo for me.
Ooh, that would be a good one. I've heard that one too. I could see that. Yeah, I could see that.
Okay, right then. Next question then. Do you have any book recommendations for for the readers?
Oh my gosh, I have so many. If you have not read Last First Kiss by Julian Winters, it came out in January. It is fantastic. It is one of my all-time favorite romances ever written. I really believe Julian is like the romance writer of our generation. And he's just a wonderful human. He's a good friend of mine. But before that, I was a fan of his. Like when we became friends, I was like, I have to tell you, I am obsessed with you. I'm pretty sure that's how I introduced myself to him at an event. I just walked up and was like, hi, I'm Kate. I'm obsessed with you. But Last First Kiss is absolutely fantastic. It follows a wedding planner who is like planning. He's an event planner, but he's planning a big wedding and for his family's business. And the best man, or the man of honor, actually turns out to be his first kiss, Jamie Peters, who also most recently broke his heart. So it's a second chance, friends to lovers, queer romance, and it is so good. It is so good. So I would 100% say read that. What else would I recommend? If you haven't read I'm Medusa by Iona Gray, also a fantastic book. Definitely read that. So good. And then Claire Legrand just came out with the final book of her Middle Miss trilogy. And I have actually not gotten to read Rose yet, which is the final book, but I have read the first two books. And the Middle Miss trilogy is fantastic. It is romantic fantasy. It's very sweeping. It kind of has Bridgerton vibes and kind of the way the world is constructed. And it also has a ton of mental health representation. And I just find it so moving. So definitely check that out as well.
Oh, that's some great recommendations. In terms, obviously, I'm not putting on the spot here, but who's your favorite author?
Oh my God, I am ride or die for Casey McQuiston. Like I met Casey at their event for the pairing. They came to Atlanta on tour, and there are actual photos of me just like flinging myself across the table, and as I passionately tell them how their books have changed my life. And their writing style. And I had actually just gotten my book deal for The Odds of You, which is with St. Martin's Griffin, which is where Red, White, and Royal Blue, like that's where Casey is published. And so I was like, and you changed my career. And I just like, it was chaotic, and they were so kind. And I can't believe they weren't like, someone please escort this person away from me immediately. But I really admire their writing style. Reading Red, White, and Royal Blue was like a life-changing sort of experience for me. I loved that book. I hadn't felt that way about a book in a long time. And it did change the trajectory of my career. I was late coming to Red, White, and Royal Blue. And it's the book that, helped me come out to my mom. It is the book that had me sitting down a few weeks later and writing the first chapter of The Odds of You. And that just, it truly completely changed my career. And so I'm like, anything Casey writes, I will read, because I'm just like, the way they're able to capture character and like that feeling of wanting to immerse yourself in a friend group. I've never seen someone do that like that before. Like they are truly, I think, like the top of that craft area. So yeah.
Oh, it sounds amazing. Obviously we've talked a lot about The Odds of You. And I obviously don't know if people have read your other books. So please keep it a little bit spoiler free. But I thought we had some questions about that one now. Obviously, I haven't read yet either, but I'm eager to find out like aspects of it.
Yeah.
Did you find anything challenging whilst writing them?
Everything, honestly. So yes and no. I think the challenging thing in writing The Curse of Saints was that I was like adjusting to a new career, right, when I wrote it. So Saints was my debut book. I wrote it from like 2020 through 2021. I then edited it. I then got my agent and we went on submission, and I was preempted within 24 hours. So it was like overnight, my life changed. And Penguin Michael Joseph bought the trilogy and bought world rights for the trilogy. And I was suddenly like a full-time author. I was able to do that, which was amazing. And I also had no idea what I was doing. Like, like I didn't know any side of the industry. I like was very much trying to adapt to writing on a deadline and going through edits and all of that. So I think a lot of the like challenging parts were just kind of adjusting to this new career. There's also the world grows as the trilogy grows. So you learn more about different aspects of the world. And I, in hindsight, should have had like a single document where all of that was kept, and I did not. I had like multiple documents and like notes and notebooks. And so when I sat down to like really dive into The Curse of Gods, the final book of the trilogy, I remember like sifting through old notebooks to try to find these like different, lore snippets that I wrote out at one point. And yeah, I think like taking something that was complex and making it simple enough that someone who wasn't living in the world in the way I was in my head could follow it, that was a challenge for sure. It was definitely, but it was a good challenge. Like every part of it was a great challenge. But it was a feat. And I think the thing I didn't anticipate is when you write a trilogy, you live in that world for a long time. So I spent 5 years in the world of The Curse of Saints, which was amazing. And by the time Gods came out, I was like, okay, I'm ready to do something new. And then it came out and I was like, no, now I miss it. Like I want to go back to these characters. I have more thoughts to share. So it's definitely like an interesting emotional journey, when you're staying in something that long.
Obviously, did you always know it was going to be a trilogy?
I did. So I sat down. I had actually gone to the mountains with some friends, and I was writing a rom-com that'll never see the light of day. It truly won't. And
Okay.
it's so bad. And I had the idea for The Curse of Saints, and I had written down, I had a dream about a girl calling down lightning to save a friend. And I'd written that scene and what becomes like a pivotal scene between Aya and Will following that. And I just had so many questions about these characters. Like I was like, who are they? Why are they in the dungeon arguing? Why is what this character did not a good thing? Like what's all the drama around this? And I went to the mountains with some friends and I was like, hey, don't let me work on that fantasy idea because I'm like halfway through this rom-com that's going to change my life. And then I got there and it was Halloween weekend and it was cold and like, like spooky, and it was perfect fantasy writing weather. And I was like, never mind, I'm going to write this fantasy. And I sat down and I wrote the first 4 chapters of The Curse of Saints and then mapped out the entire arc of the trilogy. And I came home and I was like, this is what I'm moving forward with. So yeah, I knew from the get-go that it was going to be a trilogy. We knew that we were going to try to sell it as a trilogy as well. When we put it on submission, I had like a bunch of materials for the trilogy. So yeah, I always knew. There was a half a beat when I was writing Gods that I was like, this could be 4 books. And then my agent was like, no, it's not. And I was like, okay, fine. You're right. You're probably right. It's not. So yeah, but that's just me. I could always fill more space if I needed to.
I think, like you said, like you think it's the end, and then you can have so many thoughts. Like as you're right, you've got so many thoughts going on. Like you've got so many directions.
There's so many different things, and like so, Saints follows. I mean, the Curse of Saints series is Aya's story, but there are other characters like Aiden and Josie who have huge roles in the book, and their point of view characters as well. And I was like, I could have written a whole book just following what was going on with Aiden and Josie. Specifically around like the book 2, book 3 time frame. So there was so much to cover. And even now, one of the things I would really like to do is I would like to put out like little kind of epigraphs that cover like the year after when the Curse of Gods ends, because there's still like stuff that I purposely left unresolved, but there are like more things I want to like just kind of drip in there.
So obviously you've dabbled with romance. Do you think you'll ever try any other genre?
I think so. I have been sitting on a dystopian for years that I would love to move forward with at some point when my schedule allows. I'm very much not like a genre writer. I'm very drawn to story first and then just kind of like exploring it and figuring out like where it goes and what I'm writing. So I will always like, never say never. I think I will probably predominantly stay in contemporary and fantasy or speculative of some sort. But yeah, I would love to get the dystopian out one day. I think that would be awesome.
Oh, I love that. So in terms of your writing, do you have a ritual that do you have to be in a certain place? Music, any comfies?
Yes, I definitely have to have a coffee. That is a big one. I either write in my office, which is where I am right now, or I write at a coffee shop with friends. So it really just depends on the day. And then I'm mostly like a morning to mid-afternoon writer. If I'm on deadline like I am now, I'll sometimes go back and like do what I call half-ass drafting at in the evening where I'll like sit down and have something on TV and like have a glass of wine and draft while I'm, just hanging out. So I feel productive, but I'm not actually working at full speed. Um, and then I have to have a playlist for a project. If I don't have a playlist for a project, it like doesn't exist in my head. So I usually start with something like just a random writing playlist, or like a focus playlist. And then as I start to understand the characters, I start picking out songs and such as I'm plotting and all of that. And then I have to have that locked in before I like really get deep into a story.
Oh, I like it. I
Yeah.
always like to hear everyone's different rituals because I know like I can't sit in silence even when I read. So like I'll put like
Yeah.
the crackle of a fire on.
Yeah, there has to be something. There has to be something. I sat
Yeah.
down this morning and I got like sucked into edits really quickly. And I was like sitting there and then I was like, what's happening? Something's weird. And I was like, oh, it's silent. I hate it. So I had to like put on some like beats because I was like, I can't, like, this is too weird.
Anything.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love that. Obviously, you talked about you're on a double deadline. Can you tell us anything about what you're working on, or what to expect, or when to expect?
I don't think I'm allowed to tell anything. Here's what I can tell you. I can tell you the next thing you get from me will be a contemporary romance.
Okay.
Um, I can tell you that it'll be coming in 2027.
Okay.
I can tell you I also am working on a romantasy duology
Oh
that
wow.
will come after that. Um, I don't think I am allowed to say anything else, which is so, I have to tell you, Paige, like it's so weird for me. I do not keep my own publishing secrets, like ever. Ever. I'm always spilling the beans. And I like this is the first time that I've been like, I don't think I'm allowed to like pitch this.
It's fine. It's fine. We always ask just in case we'll get
Yes.
anything.
Yes.
But at least we know there's more books coming.
There are definitely more books coming. Yes,
Really
absolutely.
like that. Have you found it? Obviously, you said you're on a double deadline. Have you found that tricky?
Yes, for sure. It's
Between
definitely
both.
been tricky. Yeah, going back and forth. We actually just kind of finagled my schedule a little bit to give me some more time, because there's just so much to be done on both books, And on top of that, I think the tricky thing is um just like the with the promo for the odds of you and like doing events and I love doing events, like it's one of my favorite things. I love talking to readers, but balancing that with also like writing and editing and like jumping back and forth, I'm still trying to find my cadence when it comes to writing in two different genres, especially when I have things due around similar times. Like what does that look like? Do I write one and then write the other? Do I pop in and out of the projects? And I haven't quite figured that out yet. I'm experimenting. So it's been challenging for sure.
Yeah, it's a new challenge.
A new challenge. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I will figure it out. But it definitely has been like a lot of trial and error to be like, I started being like, okay, so in the mornings I'm going to work on this project, and then in the evenings I'm going to work on this project, and that got thrown out the window really quickly. I was like, this is too much. My brain is mush. And then it was like Monday through Thursday, this project because it's more pressing, and then Fridays are dedicated to this project. And then I was like, this isn't working either. And so now I'm into like alternating weeks of like where I'm going. But yeah, it's definitely a new challenge.
um well, that's what I was going to say now. Obviously, you've brought out lots of lovely books, and what has been, as a author, what has been one of your biggest highlights, like the best moment you've had?
Oh man. There have been so many great moments, to be honest with you. I mean, just like talking to readers has been amazing. I think a moment that really sticks with me is I recently was a keynote at a festival here in Atlanta, which was amazing. And during the Q&A, a woman stood up and was like, this isn't a question, but I just wanted to let you know that like reading odds and reading the ADHD representation was really moving, not for me, but because my son, who is in college, has ADHD, and we've never been able to fully understand like what he was experiencing. And I showed him a few of the passages, and he was like, yes, this is how I experienced this. And she's like, I just really am thankful that it helped us understand him more. And that was like amazing and moving. And I was really, really just grateful for her for sharing that. And just anytime someone says something like that, it really sticks with me. I've had readers come into my DMs and say the same thing, that it's the first time they've seen their thoughts depicted in this way and their brains depicted this way on the page. And I think that has been, through all of the like amazing moments I've had, that's been like one of the coolest moments, to just be like, wow, like something that I created has resonated with people.
Helping as well, like obviously
Yeah.
get someone to understand how it feels, pass it on.
Yes, absolutely. I had a friend actually leave her agent because she read The Odds of You and she felt like she needed support the way Sage gets support from her agent. Like stuff like that. I'm like, what? Like these are words from my brain that are like impacting. You know what I mean? It's so surreal. So like, yeah, anytime that happens, I just kind of like freak out.
You've just actually reminded me of a key part in the book that I actually want to ask a question about. So do you know, in the book, which obviously she had writer's block for a very long time, she comes up with a whole different direction, a little bit like how you change your like genre,
Yeah.
and then obviously her editor knocks her down.
Yeah.
Was where did that come from?
Um, so I've not had that experience. I've had great experiences with my editors. I have had where I thought we were all aligned and we are not all aligned, and that like kind of like whiplash feeling of being like, what? Like I thought I was in the groove and now I'm not. And you know, and it hasn't just happened with editors. Like it's happened with like my best friend reads everything, and I'll send her something. I'll be like, this is it. I've nailed it. And she's like, this is not it. You have not nailed this. And yeah, just those moments of like going forward in a direction. And I wanted to capture this idea of the creative struggle, right? Between you having a vision as the creative and an editor having maybe a different vision, and what that looks like and how you make peace with that. And I am still learning where to kind of push back and stand my ground, or like adjust and say like, okay, no, this isn't like, okay, you're right, like this shouldn't go this way. And so that was kind of more of just that kind of cyclical feeling that I have of like trying to figure that out. um I'm very fortunate again to have like really great experiences with my editors. I also have learned to take feedback as an indication. I mentor other writers, and I always tell them feedback is an indication and clarification of intent. And so oftentimes, if a piece of feedback rubs me the wrong way, it's because doing what is being suggested will change the intent I have. And that's usually the part that I don't want to change. And what that tells me is that I have not successfully communicated the intent or executed it. And so that is the thing that helps me work with my editors to be like, okay, I hear you. This is what I'm intending. Can you help me get here?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I think that it was more just kind of like looking at that. But it is it's funny because my editors read that and they were like, oh, but like it's not that big of a deal. It's just feedback. And I was like, no, it's not big of a deal to you, but to us, it's like huge, especially if we're stuck. And so it was a very interesting like back and forth with my editors. And we were like joking back, like back and forth. And my UK editor was like, justice for editors. So it's like, I know, I hear you, babe. Trust me. But yeah, it was funny. It was just like funny to see, like, read it through those different lenses.
It's like a secret message. Like you don't mean it. You just saying this is how people feel sometimes.
Yes. It's funny because I have to, when I started writing contemporary, I had to like text my family and be like, hey, FYI, this isn't us. Like I need y'all to know that this is not about you. Because I think it's easier for them to like see elements of our family in contemporary than it is in fantasy. And I started thinking like maybe I need to do that with my editors. Like be like, hey, this is not you. Like, I'm
I'm
not
not into you.
you.
Did you find, obviously, you've said you've got a really supporting family. Did you find that bit hard writing it on? So obviously, Theo has his problems with his dad, and then obviously Sage has a very bumpy ride with her family throughout. And I did love her relationship with her brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one I did love, but it was very bumpy.
Yeah. Um, Not really. I mean, I think, there are aspects, there are kernels of truth in there that are then blown out into like more dramatic scenarios. And unfortunately, a lot of friends I have parents who are not at all supportive of their endeavors. And so it was easier to tap into than I would like to admit, to be honest with you. I think I pulled also a lot from when I was younger. I think my parents were very supportive of me, but didn't fully understand kind of where I wanted to go. And especially my dad. Like my dad comes from a very corporate background. He really like clawed his way up the corporate ladder, and he has a very set definition of success, even today. And he is very good about, telling me he's proud of me and he's proud of what I've achieved and, the person I am, which I really appreciate, because when I was in high school and college, there was kind of this tension of not fully understanding why I didn't want the like typical, career that he felt like I should want. And he'd worked hard to give me the opportunities to be able to pursue. So I think I kind of like tapped into some of that angst, of like wanting to carve out a different path. And again, like just so many creatives I know have that experience as well, where they take kind of a different journey and the people around them are like, what? What do you mean? And I, especially, the relationship between Sage and Noah is very much informed by, I'm the middle child. I'm informed by the relationship with my siblings. And especially my older brother, who is, as we get older, it is interesting for us to try to redefine our relationship, especially because he has a more traditional career. And there are times where like we don't understand what the other person does. Like I could tell you what he does, but I can't actually picture what he does all day. Like I'm like, so is it just like spreadsheets? Like what are you actually doing? And like he very much feels the same way. Like he's like, what are you actually doing? Other like you just sit and write all day? Like what does that look like? And so we really had to like adjust, and I think he would never admit it, but I think it's hard for him to learn a new role of not having to like be my protector and my like, kind of mentor, because he doesn't understand. And so there was a lot of that, I think, that came into the story.
Oh, I like that. So Karen's popped in the chat what kind of creative exercises do you do to warm up / or just write for the fun of it?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Right now, I do not have a single second to do any like additional writing that is not what I have on my calendar, to be honest with you, just because of my deadline schedule. I will say if I get stuck in a story and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to get through this, I will change up like the point of view. Like I'll write from a different point of view, even if it's not going to go in the book, or I'll write a scene that I know is not going to go in the book at all. Just to like have fun and, chase a lead that it's usually like a creative itch. I usually have a project on the back burner that I dabble in as like that little carrot for me that I'm diving into. But right now I'm so booked that I don't even get to do that. But yeah, it's usually more of like just writer's block hacks, to be honest with you. I just got a free write, my little free write tablet. I think I have it right here, which is basically just like a little word processor. So all I can do is write on it. And if I get stuck, I'll write on this because I can't edit as I write.
Oh, I like that. So you can just quickly just go.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I do. That is interesting. Because I'm a little bit like you with the notes. Like, if you saw my notes for any sort form of book club or like Q&A, like there's 5 million. Like, I'll think of something whilst reading a book and just write it down, and then like open new notes the next time.
Yes, I finally have started pinning like my like keynotes, the top of my notes app, and I have one now for the second romance, which it just says like R2 edits. And it's literally just stream of consciousness ideas I get as I'm like working through edits, and I'll just drop them down in my notes app, which is great because now they're all in one note, but they have no context. Like I was going back through the other day and I was like, what does this even mean? All I said was maybe not lake, maybe bar. I was like, what?
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
what like, what type of bar? Like a tavern? Like,
just rocking up.
yeah, who knows?
I love that. That last fun, really fun. I like to give this question at the end of the Q&A because it's really fun. If you could have a meal with any of your characters, who would you invite and why?
Oh my gosh, if I could have a meal with any of my characters, I would oh my gosh, I have so many characters. I would want to have a meal with Aiden from the Curse of Saint series because he's one of my all-time favorite characters and he's just such a wonderful human. Yeah, I would have a meal with Aiden because I feel like we'd have a lot to talk about. And then I'd also want to have a meal with Emerson because like she's just such a fun time. I'd be like having a meal with my best friend. Like we would just talk endlessly. So I would definitely want to have a meal with her and like really try to understand how she like has her aura and like learn something from her on that.
Help me. She's very confident. And I think that's why I love her. She's
Yeah.
like, I don't care. She's like, I'm gonna go for it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, she is who she is and she makes no apologies for it. And I love that.
I'm just going to quickly ask to our audience if you've got any dying questions before for our last 5 minutes, do feel free to shoot them into the chat now in case I've missed any.
Yeah.
Or the Q&A. So we had one, obviously, where you do romancing. Do you find it hard, obviously, writing the more spicy side of romancing?
Oh, that is such a great question. Yes, I would say so. All of my books tend to sit around like a similar spice level. So there's always going to be on page. Well, maybe I shouldn't say there's always going to be because I don't know. Who knows what I'm going to do in the future? As of now, there is on page like open door intimacy, but none of them go into like 4+ chili pepper territory. I always say they're spicy, not smutty. Like that's kind of where I sit on the spice level. I love smut. I can't write it to save my life. Like I just don't know how to work it into the plot in that way. Like I really admire writers who are like, yes, there is a ton of sex and this is why. And I'm very much like, here are the beats of which these sex scenes are important and like what we're doing for them. But I can't think of that many. But I remember the first time I wrote a sex scene, I was very uncomfortable. I now am much more comfortable writing them. The challenge is making them unique and not being like, okay, this is the same thing over and over again. Also, I never write my sex scenes in private. I'm always writing them in public. I don't know what it is. Like, it's just, it used to be how it fell in my writing calendar. And now I'm just like, now it just feels weird to write one at home. So I'm like, well, I've got to save this one for the coffee shop or the airplane. So yeah, I would say it's challenging in terms of like hitting that spice level and also reader expectation. You know, I think we all have different expectations of genre and how much spice. But I've grown a lot more comfortable with it. It was though initially easier to write a battle scene than a sex scene, but you have to choreograph both. You really do.
You do.
Yeah.
I obviously I don't write it, but when I read it, I was the same when I first ever read it. I was like, I can't. I was like, I got embarrassed.
Right.
You just get used to it as time
Just used to it. Yeah.
But I haven't mastered doing it. Like if I'm on a train and it happens, I'm listening to it in audiobook. I'll turn it off.
So I am the opposite. I will sit there and read the filthiest stuff, like full brightness while people are boarding the plane. And I'm like, you're welcome. Like, I feel like it's a treat for whoever's walking by me. I will say the awkward thing though is so my parents read all my stuff, which I'm very grateful for. But my dad was like, oh yeah, so he and his wife were reading The Curse of Saints like out loud to each other. And I was like, no, please don't tell me that. And then it gets progressively spicier as the series goes on. Saints does not have much spice, but enough that I was like uncomfortable with the idea of my dad reading it aloud. And then by Sins, he was like, he finished it. He was like, it was amazing. And like the plot twist. And then he was like, but I was so uncomfortable during the sex scenes because you wrote them. And I was like, Dad, we never have to talk about this, like ever. Like, let's just never, ever, ever have this conversation again. And so by the time he read Gods, he was like, oh, I just decided to skip every chapter where there was a sex scene, which there's like 3, maybe.
Yeah.
But I was like, Dad, like, there's a lot in there that you're missing. Like they're very purposeful. Like there's moments of like plot that you've just completely missed. And I was like, you know what? Whatever makes you comfortable. But I would say that's probably my biggest struggle is like my dad he's so sweet, but he really wants to talk about the books and he really wants to talk about how like unnerving it is to read about sex from my point of view, which I was like, okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
I mean, that's brave of him because
I know.
My dad asked for a book recommendation. He's like, you read one of my books, I'll read one of yours. And I was like, I don't know what to give you. I don't want to give you something.
No. Yeah, it is brave of him for sure.
Definitely. Well, we have come to obviously the end of our Q&A, and I want to say thank you so much for fitting us into your busy schedule. It has been so lovely getting to chat and work out your writing processes, hear how Odds of You came about, and also you've encouraged me to start the trilogy, so that's my next adventure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for picking Odds as a book club book. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And good luck with your next 2 books.
Thank you.
And I'll say goodbye to everybody else as well. Hope you had a lovely evening. And yeah, hope to see you guys soon on the Q&A.